Hi everyone! I laid out four Guqin here today because I wanted to show you a comparison of different Guqin and the different sounds they can have. Now, as you can see here, just from the physical shape, they have different styles. This one here is definitely shorter than the other ones as well. It's more slender. And these two are metal strings, and then these two here are silk strings. So I'm gonna see if my camera can zoom in enough so you can see the difference here. So these are the silk strings. Okay, and then this is the metal strings. So there is a bit of a difference for the metal strings and the silk strings. I will play all four of these for you. I don't know if the audio on my camera is, on my phone is good enough to pick it up, but hopefully you can hear some of the differences. I'll start with this one. So hopefully my phone picked that up. To me, standing here in person, I definitely hear a difference between all four of these Guqin. This one sounds really low, especially this first string. When you purchase a Guqin, I definitely recommend, if you can, to go to the store in person and try it out, listen to each of the ones that you're interested in, because hearing it in person is going to be the best way for you to judge which one you like. And also remember that because the Guqin, the sizes of them are going to be different, and each individual, our arm lengths, our finger lengths, they're all different. So some you're just gonna feel nicer playing it. And then others you might have a little more difficulty with. So it's nice to be in there in person, touch the Guqin, play the strings, listen to it, and get a feel for, how your fingers feel, how your fingers work on the strings. If you can't do that, if that's not possible, ask the store for an audio sample, and definitely, at least find one that you like the sound of, because at the end of the day, that's most important. As I mentioned before, Guqin has a lot of room for customizations and personalizations because historically they were an instrument for individuals to enjoy. They weren't made for concert performances. They weren't made to take for tests. They were just made for someone to have a cup of tea, enjoy some time to relax, and, either in their backyard or up on a mountain by a river somewhere. A lot of it is individual customizations. Someone mentioned in one of my previous posts that the making of the Guqin seemed very flexible, or they use the term loosey-goosey, and I totally agree with that. Compared to some of the more strict standards of some of the Western instruments, I used to play the piano. So, you can't mess around with how you make a piano. Otherwise, it's going to sound different, right? It's going to sound weird. It's going to sound off. Either you make upright pianos or grand pianos, but there are certain standards you have to follow. With Guqin, it's very much, there is a standard. You're supposed to make it long in length. You don't want to make a round Guqin or a triangle Guqin, although I guess you could try. But there are some rules, but there's also a lot of room for personalizations as well, including in how you make it and also how you play it. And I think that's one of the differences between these instruments and even other Chinese traditional instruments and some of the Western instruments that we're more used to. And speaking of customizations, another thing that is very different between playing the guqin and playing Western instruments is the music itself when you play it. So, like I said before, I have played the piano before, and when I'm given a piano score, where there's a note, you play that note. However many beats it shows that you play that note for, you hold it for that many beats. If there's a rest, you rest. If it says crescendo, then you crescendo. If it says decrescendo, you decrescendo, right? You get louder or softer as it says on your score. With the guqin, it's not that strict. There's a lot more flexibility. First of all, there's no crescendo or decrescendo at all. It doesn't tell you where to go softer or louder at all. So even if you want it to tell you that, it doesn't show you that. And even with some of the notes, like I'll show you the one I'm practicing now. So this is the piece I'm practicing now, Liang Xiao Yin. And you can see my teacher has completely had me cross out these two notes because he doesn't think that sounds good. And then we've added something to this note here. Because the guqin historically was made to play for yourself or with close friends and not for performances or for any kind of standardized testing, it really comes down to what sounds nice to your ears. You have a main melody, you learn the main melody of how the piece goes, but extra little flourishes, extra little notes or rests, that's all up to you and what you like. And it's also one of the reasons guqin has a reputation for being able to sort of express the personality of the player, right? If you listen to someone playing the guqin and they've added in a lot of little flourishes to the main melody, that tells you something about that person. If you listen to them and they play no flourishes, it's just the main melody, that also tells you something about that person. Historically, when you looked at guqin, like this is a modern guqin score. Historically, it doesn't even have any of these. Like 1 equals F. F is completely a Western music idea. Like historically, none of this. All historically would have is these little characters, these little weird looking characters. It wouldn't have any of these numbers up top, right? So you have no concept of where the rests are, how many beats these notes are for. You don't know where it's supposed to go soft or loud. The only way you learn the main melody is actually from your teacher, like listening to your teacher and then sort of copying that melody. You have a lot of room to play around in. When I first learned it, I was super nervous. I was of the mindset when I played the piano, like I have to follow the score exactly. I cannot variate from the score at all. And I'm coming to realize that that's not the case. You're okay to make deviations. When you're starting out, it is a good idea to get your basics down first because there are some basic rules to playing the guqin before you start doing your own thing. But once you learn those basics, there's a lot of room for you to add your own personality into each piece that you're playing. And I think that's what makes it such an interesting instrument. I feel like that's the same for a lot of other Chinese instruments. I can't say for sure because I haven't tried them, but if you played, the guzheng or erhu or any of the others, feel free to, pipe in if that's the same with your instruments. But yeah, I found that just really interesting between Chinese instruments and the Western instruments. Anyways, thanks again, guys, for following my blog and listening to me ramble. If you have any other questions or want to know other things about the guqin, feel free to let me know, and I'll do my best to answer them. Bye!